Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. Thank you very much for joining us for our very first My Navy HR PCS Advisory Council live PCS help session. My name is Commander Dave Hecht. I am the Public Affairs Officer for the Chief of Naval Personnel, and I'm going to be your Master of Ceremonies, host, DJ, interviewer, whatever you choose to call me tonight. I'm going to be that guy that's going to be leading this discussion. Throughout the evening, if you have any questions for our panel, and boy, oh boy, do we have a good panel for you tonight, just go ahead and raise your hand. If you don't know where the raise your hand button is at, then just go ahead and turn on your microphone and say, excuse me, I've got a question, and jump right on in. Let's keep this fun. Let's keep this casual. And also, by the way, if you're a shy person and you don't want to ask a question or go on camera, you just want to put it in chat, then Mr. Neil Fisher, who we'll be tossing to every once in a while, Neil will read those questions out and we'll make sure that you get your questions answered. But as I said before, we've got a great panel. And so I'm going to go ahead and just quickly introduce you to our panel. And panel, after I say your name and read you a very short bio about our panel guests, I want you to just chime in with just one PCS tip or trick. One PCS tip or trick. So there's a little clue that this is coming your way. So first, let's go ahead and start with Amy Walker. Amy Walker is a 26-year SWO spouse. She has 2 kids, a daughter, Ryan is 20, son Noah, he's 18. The family has PCS 14 times all over the world, and most recently to Newport, Rhode Island, just a few weeks ago. So they are just coming out of their latest PCS. And so, Amy, what is your PCS tip you'd like to share?
Ziploc bags. They are your life. They can save you. It's the way you can be packed quickly and unpacked quickly. Ziploc bag everything.
There you go. Willow Wegman is originally from Seattle, Washington, and runs a social media marketing business. She and her husband are currently PCSing right now from Japan to Norfolk, Virginia. So imagine taking a break during your PCS to serve on a panel like this. This is exactly what she's doing right smack dab in the middle of it. Willow, what is your PCS tip?
Well, I actually learned this because of this move, because we have stuff in the long-term storage, and I found out that you can get a 90-day extension if you need it. If you are buying a house like we are and we don't know the actual closing date, you can get a 90-day extension, which saves us a lot of time and a lot of stress. No more stress about that. So there's a tip from me to you.
There you go. Hillary Diaz. Hillary and her family have been moving with the Navy for 11 years, not straight, just throughout their 11-year career, with 8 moves between CONUS and OCONUS during that time period. Her family will be PCSing again this PCS season, and she looks forward to sharing how she's gotten through these multiple PCSs with most, not all of, but most of her sanity intact. Hillary, what's your PCS tip?
So I'm actually really excited to try this when we move up there, but I'm going to take advantage of the rise of grocery delivery. And so as I'm going through and getting rid of all of those condiments and the staples and things like that we can't move from one location to the next, I'm just going into my grocery app and I'm adding them to my cart so I can have milk, cheese, eggs, the weird barbecue sauce that my kids love to put on all of their food, all of that delivered to the house. And it's just going to save me a little bit of time and stress when we first get to our next duty station.
Have you ever been stationed in Millington, by the way, Hillary?
No, we have not.
I just was wondering if that's where they got their love of weird barbecue sauce. So I want to get orders to Millington. Mackenzie Akers. Mackenzie is a military spouse with 2 children, ages 3 and 5, and a cat. Her husband is currently stationed at NPS in Monterey, and she just did a full PPM from San Diego to Monterey in December of 2020. So Mackenzie, Mac, as everybody calls you, what's your PCS tip?
My PCS tip would just be to give yourself more time than you think you need to like get the house cleaned and ready to go, because I never ever have enough time. So
All right.
extra time.
Now, a big focus of our conversation tonight is about getting ready for the move and when the movers arrive and the time in between of getting from point A to point B. But one of the other things that we also have, we have two special guests online with us tonight, and that is Buddy Phillips and Gabe Cantu. They are from the Assignment Leave and Travel Business Design Office at NPC. Buddy is a GS-13 and a former senior chief, and Gabe is a GS-12 and a retired master chief. And they are here to be able to answer any questions you have about using your government travel card, your government credit card during your PCS. That is now authorized. For years, sailors have been saying, hey, you make me have to have this card. Why can't I use it during my PCS? Well, you can now. And so, Gabe, let's go first to you. Any tip on using that credit card?
Hi, good evening. Thanks for having me on this panel tonight. Well, tips, the primary thing is understanding what is authorized to be purchased on the credit card, which could be, not credit card, on the charge card. It could be a little daunting if you're not aware of all the entitlements, all the purchases you can make on that card, all the things that are now authorized with it. Over.
And Buddy, anything you'd like to add? Buddy, do we have you on with us?
Yes, now you do. I had a little audio problem for a moment.
No problem.
Can you hear me now?
Loud and clear.
Okay. Yeah, I think two of the important things to know for people considering using the GTCC for PCS purposes is to know who their command, pay, and personnel administrator is, their CPPA, and also to know who the agency program coordinator is, their APC, to ensure that prior to executing a PCS or in conjunction with your PCS or during it, if you have some problems with an entitlement or your card limits, to know who to contact.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. And we'll get more into the details on who to contact coming up in a little bit. Okay, so let's go ahead. And by the way, if you're not talking, if you could go ahead and mute your line, hear a lot of microphone moving and maybe the occasional kid in the background. So if you can mute your line if you're not talking, that would be appreciated. I'd like to first ask our panel, and panel, if you want to unmic your mics. I guess, you know, your spouse has just told you, hey, I've got orders to location X. What's the first thing that you start doing when you hear, okay, we now have orders in hand, we're going to X location? What's the first things that you all are doing? Again, Amy, you've done 14 PCSs, and Willow, I think at least 8 or 9, Hillary, et cetera, et cetera. So you guys are well experienced in this. What's the first thing? And any of you feel free to jump in. What's the first thing you do when you hear, okay, we've got orders?
Happened to my spouse groups, any of the local spouse groups or the Navy officer spouse club group. I go to the SWO page, any of the big groups, and I type in, hey, we're headed to Newport, Rhode Island. Who's been, who's there? And instantly I get 20, 30, 40, 75 responses of people sharing information. It's the best place to get started.
Absolutely. And then the second step that I do, because I have young kids, mine are very similar to Mac's age. I've got a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old. So the first thing is to ask the spouses. And the second thing that I do, honestly, is I go on militarychildcare.com and I update my wait list to the CDC at the new location and then start looking at what paperwork I need. A lot of it also depends on when your move date is. So for example, normally my move dates are 60, 90 days out. We actually have a little bit of time to plan ahead, but I normally have a pretty quick timeline. So when he tells me, hey, we're going here, I'm like, where are the hard copy orders? I need to put them into DPS tonight because we need to get on the move schedule tonight.
I'm the same way. I usually pretty much the moment my husband says, okay, we have orders, because Most of the time, he's emailing me that we have hard copy orders because he's usually deployed or on duty or something. He emails them to me right away, and I do everything online. He cannot do it. My husband is a nuclear person. He's very smart, but I'm the one that takes care of all of the paperwork and everything like that. We have a thing in our family. I tell him who to yell at if he needs to yell at somebody. But also, besides that, I will think, okay, do I have a friend that's been to, say, Yokosuka, Japan? And I usually have a few friends because I know a lot of people. And so I'll reach out to them first. And if I don't know anyone in the area, I just start going on the search bar on Facebook and looking it up. If I can't find a group, I just Google. I'm the Google queen. That is what I do. And that's what I've done for the past 14 or so years.
Mac, how about you? What's the first thing that goes through your mind? What's the first thing you're doing?
The first thing I do is get on the wait list for the on-base housing. Just even if we plan to live off base, at least I have that as a backup. Because the wait list, can be crazy long sometimes. And then if I'm doing a PPM, I usually start looking at like comparing prices for pods or whatever, moving companies.
Okay, good. Hey, we can learn so much from all of you in your success stories, but I think we can also learn just as much from your mistakes, from your failures. What was the biggest PCS, bungle that you did over the course of all of these PCSs that you've made? Let's start with you, Mac. What's the biggest mistake you ever made?
So I guess my tip for time has come from the most recent experience I had where we did our very first ever PPM after like 5 PCSs, and we just did not give ourselves enough time to get the trailer loaded up. We ended up leaving a bunch of stuff at the house. Luckily, someone came and picked it up off the curb, so we didn't have to like arrange a dump to come get it or whatever. But I would say enough time and space, better budgeting for that.
Got it.
You don't have to leave your possessions at your last house.
Hillary, when I was asking that question, I couldn't help but notice the big smile that you had on your face because something must have immediately come to mind. What was that?
I have two, and one relates to getting my pets overseas. I did not keep impeccable records about my pets' rabies shots and other vaccinations through our first couple of PCSs. Now, yes, they had them all, they were up to date, but I didn't really think that much about them. And then when we went to go overseas, it was, I have to have these records for X number of years, and they need to be in a certain type of ink, and they need to qualify, and they need to have the correct microchip. Well, come to find out that my pets had the wrong microchip, and they were in the wrong type of ink, and I couldn't have the vet go and sign it because the vet from San Diego had died and his practice had closed. So I had to go through the whole process to get my pets their entire course of rabies all over again, brand new microchips, all of these hoops to jump through. It was very expensive, and it was because I didn't keep the documentation and I was kicking myself. So that came to mind first. And then the second thing that came to mind was something very similar to Max, only I let my husband convince me that I didn't need to do, whenever we do a partial, as long as we're not going a CONUS, some stuff gets shoved in the car. It always does. And I'm going to go ahead and do a partial PPM to account for that and to get paid for that weight. That's just how I am. I always do a pre-pack. So that means that 2 weeks before the movers come, I take everything that I plan to put in my room that says movers don't go here, this is coming with us, and I pack it in the car. Then I put the kids in the car. Then I put the dog in the car. I verify that everybody has enough room, that we can eat the food, that no one's going to smack anybody unless you're on a really long drive. I didn't do that one of the times, and much like Mac, I had stuff sitting on the curb because there was not enough room in the car for all the stuff that we thought. So.
Got it. Amy, how about you? Biggest mistake you made?
You're on mute, my
I
friend.
didn't pay attention to the Packers. That's the biggest lesson I learned. My kids were little. My husband was deployed and I was moving to DC by myself, and I paid attention to my kids and I let the Packers do their thing. And we had a lot of theft. I had bought new clothes for my kids to start school in a few weeks, and the tags were on all the clothes. And I didn't think anything of it, that the movers went in and out of my house a lot and took lots of breaks. And I just didn't think anything of it. And when I got up there and those things weren't there, you can't account for those. And you look at your inventory and it says box 21 has clothes. I knew box 21 didn't have all the clothes, but you can't be reimbursed for that. So I learned very early on that you have to connect with your packers. You have to talk with them. You have to walk around. You have to answer questions. You have to check on them. You have to sticker boxes, whatever it takes to participate in it and be active. That's the best advice I could give someone.
And do you think that along those lines, it's good that, a couple of close friends that are Navy spouses as well, who understand this process, have them over so that one can watch the upstairs, one can watch the downstairs, one can stand out by the truck? The more eyes, the better.
Absolutely. I mean, I would say 75% of the moves, my husband's not around, and my kids now are old enough that I can say, you have the upstairs and you have the downstairs. But when they were little, absolutely. I had to rely on friends to take the kids and friends to come over and help, because you do need lots of eyes and you need to watch it the whole time.
Willow, what's the worst mistake you ever made?
Well, there are two, and I'm sorry, but I'm gonna have to put my husband on blast, because when we were moving from Amarillo to Yokosuka, Japan, my husband had my family entry approval letter and he put it in our bedroom, which was not the do not pack room. That was the guest bedroom. Well, we got to my mom's house in Seattle, Washington, and it was like a week before we flew out, and I'm in my book looking, okay, I got this paper, this paper, this paper. Couldn't find the entry approval letter. And he told me, well, I put in the bedroom. That was not the do not pack room. And of course, I started to freak out. He started to freak out. We're yelling at each other. It's bad. We figured it out. And then when we were moving back here, time also. And trust me, you don't need the 5 million pieces of clothing. I have this problem when I pack for a girls' trip, and I should know better. Also, I always pack more than I actually need. So I had to go like the day before we got on the airplane, and I had to go buy another sea bag to put throw all the crap in there. Just get it on the airplane. So trust me, you don't need all of the things.
There you go. There you go. Hey, I could ask a million questions of all of you, but the people that have tuned in to watch this this special Zoomcast don't want to hear me talking. They've got questions of their own. And so with that, we've got close to 30 people that are online with us so far this evening, and more chiming in with each minute. I'd like to go to our studio audience, Chris, and well, I'm going to click on and add Alicia here. But we've got all these great people that are online with us. So is anybody out there have a question that they would like to ask our panel? Yeah, okay, so I see Wilson and Kathy Marks. Thanks for raising your hand. Go right ahead and ask your question.
I was just wondering why the move.mil website is so incredibly painful. Like so incredibly painful. Like you really want to die using it.
Okay, well, first and foremost, I will let you know that we don't have anybody from the website on here that could answer that question for you. But let's go to our panel. And panel, have you also had experience with suffering through the website and website issues?
Yes, it's the worst website ever created. It's not intuitive. It doesn't work with lots of browsers. It doesn't work well with Macs. It kicks you out of the system. You put in a move and then you still have to confirm it. And then you confirm it, says you didn't confirm it. It's terrible. Unfortunately, it's a joint system and nobody's making changes to it. That's the problem.
So do people just bypass it? Because I have yet to make a move on it. I'm like, nope, I just go to the housing office. So I don't know if anyone uses it yet. I was just kind of wondering, maybe in the 2 years since I've moved, it's gotten better.
No, in fact, I'm actually working with a friend of mine right now who cannot get she can't go from move.mil to DPS because it's locking her out of the system. So we've managed to get her to this is not a secure site error and past that, but it is, and as Dave said, it's a joint system, or Amy said, or whoever said it, somebody said it, it's a joint system. So we don't have control over it, unfortunately, but it would be great if it worked.
So I do want to ask, or I do want to let everybody know that I will be taking down some notes and passing the feedback that we're getting on this Zoomcast to certain senior leaders, and I will pass it along that at least from you, the move.mil website is getting a definite thumbs down. Stacy Cox, you've got your hands up. A question or a comment about the move.mil?
Comment then question?
Absolutely, take it away. And by the way, Stacy has shot some videos for us, and in a week or so, we are going to. I love the T-shirt which says, if you can't see it, I run a tight shipwreck, which I think many of us can identify with during PCS season. But Stacy shot some great videos, and when we do our PCS boot camp in a week or so, we're going to get some great tips on camera from her. But Stacy, go ahead and take it away with your question and your comment.
The comment about the Move website, I open a bottle of wine and have a glass of wine. Not that I advocate day drinking, but sometimes it helps. But the best time is if their servers are not down. So if you look and it says we're going to be under maintenance, which I feel like is every single time during the summer months, which is, of course, the best time to put a site under maintenance. But I've noticed that if you are during business hours, so think like 9 to probably 3 during Monday through Thursday, I have noticed that the server's great. If you're doing it after you get home from work or on the weekend, everyone is doing it and the server is really slow. And that's when, I don't know who said it, but you get timed out and it doesn't acknowledge your move and you have to redo it and all that. So as obnoxious as it is to take time, maybe like during a lunch hour during work, and I didn't realize that until I stopped working. So the last 2 moves, when I stopped working and I had the stay-at-home mom hours, I just conveniently had it during nap time, and magically, like, it worked way better. I didn't have any moves that were rejected as far as the timeout server. So maybe that would help as far as the timeliness. It doesn't help the clunkiness. There's still 12 browsers open to do one task. But I don't know, not happy hour to bedtime and not weekends. And I've noticed that it works better.
Good tip. Okay, let's hear your question.
So my husband and I are in a unique situation. He is Geobatch in 7th Fleet Oconus coming to Conus, and we are going and meeting him together, Kumbaya, in San Diego. And we've never had this before. And because of COVID, we ended up doing the Geobatch situation. So going out there, we didn't encounter this. We don't know how to get the Navy to pay for his stuff to come over to avoid the $1,000 to UPS and FedEx stuff back home. And then at the same time, get us in. We've tried in 7th Fleet in Sasco, housing office is not having hours. So it's all communicated through email. We're not sure. We've been told that could be rectified being paid through a partial Diddy situation. We just don't know how to get the stars to align.
So Amy, Willow, Hillary, Mac, have either of you ever had an experience where you PCS'd while your spouse was geobatched?
We haven't PCS during geobatching, but we have separate PCS before. Almost every move he's gone ahead or I've gone ahead, and then he's joined us. So we've had to split sometimes a shipment. I'd go to Fleet and Family and talk with them or the move folks and have them, like Kathy said, process your move for you. It is called a split shipment. I've never been able to successfully do it in DPS on my own.
Right.
It's the kind that always gets kicked out, but
right.
You are entitled to that split shipment. Like I said, I wish I could help you get there, but I can't. But this is a time where you need to call in the help.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a question for you for clarification.
Mm-hmm.
So you're saying that, are you telling me that housing in Yokosuka right now is still
Sasbo?
Okay. Sorry. I always get them mixed. So that they're still
Leave
complete.
right before you hit the ocean.
Yeah. No, when we were in Yokosuka, I was there. I just always forget. So, but for clarification, they're still completely closed because we were always informed that. So when we were always told just to go when we were overseas to go to the housing office, and we had like a 2-day process from when they told us we were moving to when we were moving from Yokosuka back to the States. And the housing office is who made that work because they know who to call and they've done split shipments. So they should be the people fixing this for you. And they're just telling you that they can't do anything.
He took time off work. He was pushed off the ship early. Like this was a big deal to make it work in person because Mayport and Jack's here are not seeing me because he's not a part of this region. So we're here, yes, and we're being supported, yes, but this is not where the service member is attached to.
Well,
so do you have a power of attorney?
Oh yeah, royal
well,
flush, not at all.
Stacy, I've got good news for you in that we have a subject matter expert online who can answer this question for you. Chris, introduce yourself.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Chris Dietschy. I'm the Force Master Chief from Navy Personnel Command. How's everybody doing tonight?
Thank you.
Stacy, listen, this is not as bad as you think.
I didn't think it. I'm like, come on, this isn't unique.
No, this isn't. So I will tell you, in addition to, I don't know how long have you guys been in the Navy?
11
years. Okay. Well, so the people who write orders for your husband, that evil empire out there. Yeah, that's us. It's me. Listen, there's a couple ways we can fix this problem for you. Not a problem today. I'm going to send you a message with my email address. You can email me tonight and I'll have an answer for you in the morning. But I just transferred from Korea back to the United States. It is not difficult. The housing office will do a split shipment with you. If you go into the move.mil, you can actually indicate in there you're doing a split move, and housing over there will ship everything from, you guys are in Mayport?
Yes, but he lives on the ship, so he's not in housing. The ship will be out to sea. So
that's,
it's like
that's okay.
Okay, cool.
That's okay. They will still ship personal property and professional gear. So everything that's on the ship is considered professional gear. That would be uniforms, books, laptops, whatever you want to call it. But they'll ship all that, not a problem. So I'll send you my email address in a little bit. I think some of the other ladies can vouch for me. I've been in on some of the other spouses groups. I'll send you over my work email address and we'll help you out. Okay.
Thanks, Chris.
Easy day. Awesome. Glad I could be of assistance.
That's awesome. Thank you very much, Forrest. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Let's go ahead and open it up to anybody who else has another question for us. Who else? Raise your hand if you have a question for the panel. Raise your hand or just go ahead and open your mic and chime in with a question. All right, so until we hear that next question, I do want to ask one myself then. And it's something that that Hillary had mentioned before. And Hillary, you can elaborate a little bit more on it, or other members of the panel can jump in. But I do want to talk about, since my good friend, my dog, my yellow lab Penny, is sitting right here next to me at my feet, I want to talk about shipping, PCSing with a pet, whether that be CONUS or OCONUS. Talk to me about, what should I do? What should I be? How can I make this a successful move for not just man, but beast as well?
Okay, well, give me 1 second while I open to my OCD record here that I was talking to you all about. But one of the first things that you need to do when you're PCSing to a new location, it doesn't matter if you're CONUS or OCONUS, is look and see what the restrictions are in your new area. If you're planning on looking at housing, look at what the housing restrictions are, because housing restrictions, especially on-base housing restrictions, vary widely from region to region. So for example, if you have a mix, some housing locations will not allow you to have a pet or a dog that says mix and doesn't describe it's a lab mixed with a shepherd, because there's a concern about them being an aggressive breed. Some housing locations don't. So for example, going over to Hawaii or to Japan, there's a whole vaccination process and documentation that you need to have. So those are things that you need to think about, and especially with a pet, as soon as possible. That's probably after after Mac made a good point with housing, you reach your spouse's pages, you go update childcare, and then go see what the restrictions are to where you're moving, especially if you're going overseas, because since we have come back, and Willow, you might actually be able to speak to this a little bit more about PCSing back with a pet, but there have been more and more restrictions around the type and size and breed of animal that can be flown overseas. I know that right after we came back in 2018, there was a massive change in the height and weight of dogs that could come back. And so people were stuck because they brought Great Danes and they'd been overseas for 5+ years and they could not get them back. So think about how you're going to take care of your pet. My last thing on this, and then I'll stop, is also think about your pet's age. It's really stressful, especially if you're doing an Okona flight, a long flight on an elderly dog. And some dogs have passed because they've gotten all their food, they've gotten their water, they've met all the requirements, but they're just old dogs, and it's a lot of stress, especially on hearts like that. So think about what's best for your entire family, including your 4-legged family.
I will say, especially when you're going to Oconus, even when you're coming back from Oconus, that even before you get hard copy orders, even if you get like verbal orders, have your spouse go to their travel person and have them put you on the pet list for the military flight. We did that when we went to Japan, and we were able to get both of our pets on the military flight, super easy. I did not do that when we came back to America. Not a big deal, totally fine. We flew American, and they contracted to JAL. If you can fly JAL, Japan Airlines, do it. They are super amazing. Even in this COVID time, they were amazing people. They walked us through everything, and basically just talk to people, ask questions, especially if you are moving back from Japan, just ask questions. And if you have smaller dogs, I would take them. Bigger dogs, it's really difficult right now. I have a girlfriend that is PCSing from Okinawa, and she has a German Shepherd, and her husband are trying to collect over $5,000 to have their dog, their baby, shipped back to America. And if you can get, especially if you're going to Japan, I highly recommend the Yokosuka Pet group. They are amazing. I know the admin on the page. She's amazing. They have so many resources. So highly, highly, highly recommend researching the resources that are out there, especially on Facebook, because that'll save you a lot of time, money, and tears.
And the reason why Willow and I keep bringing up Japan isn't just both because we've both been there, but also because there are a very large number of restrictions in Japan. There is no rabies there. There is not. So they have a large amount of restrictions. Some other European countries, their rabies already exists. So the restrictions, the same level of restrictions are not there, which is again why I emphasize, as soon as you have an inkling that you're going to go over there, as Willow said, before you get hard copy orders, start looking into what the restrictions and requirements are where you're going.
Very good. Thank you. Neil
Also,
Fisher.
use a military vet if you can. Saved a ton of money at the Norfolk military vet. When I figured that out, to take 2 cats over, you got to do all those shots and all that stuff. And the regular commercial vet was like twice the amount of money as the Norfolk vet was. So I wish I had known that earlier.
If you've got access to those services, take advantage of them. Neil Fisher, you've got your hand up. Is this related to pets or something separate?
This is related to pets. I wasn't going to chime in, but you guys, you drug me in. My wife and I moved with our boxer from Guam to Hawaii, but despite both of those locations being rabies free and all of the hoops we had to jump through that you guys have already articulated, one of the things I wanted to throw out to folks that I wish I had known was that sometimes your pet is not going to be able to travel as easily as you will. When we moved from Hawaii to Northern Virginia, our pet shipped almost 2 weeks before we did, which was a challenge. And I just want to make sure that folks keep those types of special uh, situations in mind. You know, you may have to find accommodations for your pet in a place and manner that you really hadn't thought about. I think if we had known that we're going to have to be separated from at the time, our child, we probably would have figured out a way to get him to a family member or something well in advance so that he wasn't living in a strange and foreign, even though it was in Virginia, foreign to him, really sterile kind of pet place. So just, if you know you're going to get orders, just keep that in mind and maybe do something with your pet well in advance of you actually getting on a plane. Over.
That's great, Neil. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. I think I brought up pets before kids because on most days, I think I actually love my dog more than my children. So no, that's horrible. But it's very appropriate that we go from pets to kids because we have a question that was put in chat, and I'd like to read this specifically to Mac because I know that you've got the 3 and the 5-year-old and a cat. And it's from Michelle Saint, who says, "Good evening, everyone. Today I received hard copies PCSing to NRD Seattle. Congratulations. Checking in no later than 30 August. I'm a single mom and worried about childcare. I know for a fact that the wait list for CDC and CDCs are ridiculously long, and outside daycare is expensive. My question is, what is the best way to get help in this situation? I am worried about budget for childcare for 2 kids. Thanks in advance." So Mac, that question over to you since you currently have a 3 and a 5-year-old.
I actually think that Hillary would be much better for this because my kids are not in childcare. I've been on the wait list at the CDC here since like 3 months, probably before we moved here. So it's been over 6 months now. So I don't really have a good answer for that.
Okay, that's fine. But you mentioned Hillary. So Hillary, over to you.
I do have a couple of tips, actually. So the first thing to do, as you said, is to look into the CDC. And I think you probably meant CDH as the second waitlist option. So what I will tell you, and I'm speaking from personal experience because we are PCSing to a location where there is one CDC and there are a whole lot of people and there are only 18 total daycares and preschools in the entire area. So the wait lists are ridiculous everywhere. So I feel your pain, I do. And it's a bit of a shock to see how expensive it is compared to where we are now. But so the steps that I took were, first I reached out to the CDC, and after getting on the wait list with the CDC, I actually personally reached out. And part of the reason why the wait lists are the way they are for both CDC and CDH is because of COVID. So there are 2 things that you can do there. Number one, the CDCs are still operating on a dual waitlist system. They have a regular waitlist system, and then they have the essential personnel or needed personnel waitlist. If you can get a letter from your command saying that you need to be working, that you are considered essential personnel, that you meet the criteria that the base has set out for that to be labeled as that type of person, then you will be escalated to the COVID waitlist, for lack of a better way to phrase it. And they are bringing in children on a regular basis on that waitlist. Also, I've spoken to the CDC where we are going, and they have said that with the move for a lot of the country to Bravo, that they are expecting to see some rules relaxed as far as how many children, the ratios, and how many, what the maximum capacity can be. So they expect to start bringing children in. That does not help all of the way. But so that's a little bit of hope on the side for the CDCs and the CDHs. As far as expensiveness, as far as expense for out in town, childcare aware. I know that there is a wait list for childcare aware, but I will tell you, I never thought that I would actually get any type of assistance from it. I put both of my kids on it when we came here to Virginia Beach. And about 6 months into it, I suddenly was contacted and they said, hey, we've got space for both of your kids and we can help support them. So what Child Care Aware is it's a military subsidy program that supports the difference between what you'd pay at the CDC and what you're paying out in town. And man, that was a life changer for me. So I recommend that every single person, as you're going into that, if you have to be going out in town, put yourself on the wait list. You do have something similar to, I believe, and this is where I'm a little fuzzy because they recently changed some rules, but if I understand correctly, the wait list for Child Care Aware is something not that dissimilar from the wait list for CDCs, where they do give preference to dual mill and they give preference to single mills. But so that is how I would help alleviate that problem. And I hope that that helps answer your question, because I deeply feel the pain of childcare and stressing when we move.
Anybody else in the panel want to chime in on this topic?
You can also reach out to the school liaison officer at most bases. They're heavily connected with the public schools. A lot of school districts offer some type of universal pre-K or pre-K offered for certain populations or economic groups. A lot of times military qualify, sadly, for those programs that you wouldn't think that you qualify. And the SLO is a great way to connect with those programs and find out about other centers and things in the area that can work with you to give you that buffer between getting into a CDC or another child aware program.
And Amy just made a good point that I forgot. Most CDC directors maintain a list of child cares in the area, ones that you may not necessarily find when you Google search them. Like, for example, when our future location up in Newport, the CDC director, she sent me the list and I was like, oh, only 5 or 6 of these show up on my search, but that's how I know that there are 18 in our area.
Also home health, you'll get home daycares that the military has certified as well. They keep lists of those, and to find out maybe you could get a home slot temporarily until you could get into facility. So definitely reach out to a SLO.
Yeah, I hope you were writing all that down. I came fast and furious. And I want to remind everybody, we're going to be, when I'm recording this now, I'm going to be posting it to Facebook at 10 o'clock tonight. So if you didn't get all that great information, that's okay. You can go back and watch the rebroadcast later on this evening. I have to tell you that we've got a 15-year-old and an 18-year-old, and my wife and I call it parent envy. We saw other young parents with kids, and they had a parent who was retired or lived in the area and was able to come over and watch the kids. And so, never always, always take into account that maybe you have a relative, somebody who can, come and spend some time until you get settled to help you get through these tough times. I've got a question in chat from Andrew Ryan, and it says, good evening, everyone. I came in a little late, not sure if you went over it yet, but in my case, I am in the process of a medical board, and I'll be getting not by choice. I would assume he's saying getting out, not by choice. It is going to be like a normal PCS move. Any recommendation, tips, suggestions makes me really worried. Thank you in advance. So this is in regards to somebody who's getting out, I would assume, of the Navy. Anything different between when you're getting out, whether a medical board or you're retiring, that last PCS? Wouldn't that be the same as just a normal PCS?
We just helped a friend do this who was going out not by choice, and per what they were instructed, you will get moved one final time to your home of record. So it's a regular PCS insofar as just household goods and all of the moving process and that type of thing. I do not, however, know about DLA and those types of entitlements. So I don't know if Chris, if you know, or Amy, or anybody else.
No, I don't have any information on that, unfortunately. We're lifers at this point, so the thought of even getting out scares the hell out of me.
Let's go over to Force. Force, is
Yeah.
there
So
any difference?
the good news is, well, I'm sorry, not the good news that you're getting out. I'm sorry that you're getting out from MedBoard, but the good news is it will act just like every other PCS move that you would do. You'll get a set of orders. You'll coordinate it with housing and household goods, and they will move you to your final destination. It'll be no different than any other move. I would be curious if the person who submitted the question has ever moved before.
Okay.
And so if they have, it's going to be almost identical.
That's what I thought. Let's go over to Jessica Poole. And Jessica, you've got your hand raised and have a question for the panel. Please tell us your question.
I was actually going to speak to the question about them being separated.
Yeah.
And it actually depends on what type of separation it is, on whether they can go to their home of record or home of selection. So that's going to depend if they're going to be medically retired and how many years they actually have in during their separation as well, because there is a stipulation with 8 years of service. So I would advise them to talk to their transition assistance program and TAP as they're separating, and to get some clarification with their final move. Also, they will not be entitled to DLA or to TLE or TLA. So those are some differences with that final move versus a PCS move.
Okay, so very similar, but some of the entitlements don't apply. Okay, very good. Any other questions? Let's go. Let's keep it questions coming in, whether again from chat, which I'm more than happy to read, or if you just want to jump online and ask a question. Do we have a question from the group for the panel?
I have one more question.
Yeah, please.
Hopefully this still pertains, but it's about BAH when you move behind your spouse. So like my spouse might move ahead of me, which always happens. And then I would move like a month or two later, and the BAH thing always gets messed up. So is the rule that it probably also depends on whether you take housing or not. I haven't quite figured it out. 26 years and haven't figured this out, but
so the rule is, to cut you off, Kathy.
Go ahead, Amy.
Basically, when your spouse checks in, he can elect to take his new BAH for his new duty station, or retain where his family is and then change it later on. Okay, so he has the ability to make that choice.
But as soon as he accepts housing, it changes, right? If he accepts housing.
If he takes housing, then you get your BAH cut off. Okay. Correct.
Okay. That's exactly what I thought.
Yeah, most duty stations will either hold or delay acceptance of housing until family arrives if you coordinate with them. Privatized housing has been a little less agreeable to that, but the housing that's still Navy run is more flexible, I would say.
Then does Wilson pay for while he's there in the whatever Navy Gateway Inn or whatever, right?
Yes. Then your spouse would be responsible. But what you can check is, I know coming up here to Newport, there was temp housing. And so it was 4 or 5 service members living together in temp housing. They had available housing. Some locations like Norfolk has a house. It's like a sailor house is typically what it's called. And they all end up in there, kind of share kitchen, that kind of thing. But it's a quarter of the cost of what it would need to, stay in the queue, the lodge, any of those other options.
Thanks.
So you might look into that as well. Talk to the housing office. That's your best option.
And Stacy, I think, wanted to chime in on this. Stacy?
There's we had to do this for the GeoBatch situation for our housing here to be covered. It's different than the SASBO. I don't know the number, but you can Google all the DD forms, but it's like DD 59, I think 60 is the regular start and stop, but it's somewhere around there. And it's a special form that acknowledges which one you're choosing for the time, duration, etc. It was very simple once you had the form.
Okay, so, what determines, well, our next question comes from Shannon. And Shannon, I think partially this question should go to you, since you guys are the ones that drive the orders here. The question is, what is considered peak season for moving? That was mentioned in our letter for our move in August. And does it really take 4 weeks to get stuff? So the first part of that question for us is, what is peak season? What are the dates? And then for our panel, we'll talk about how long it takes to get your stuff.
Great news, as the advertisement was for today's Zoom call, we're just starting peak season. Welcome aboard. It's great to have you here. And peak season runs typically through the end of August, is where we do the bulk of our PCS moving.
Okay, and then for the panel, you've now gotten to your PCS location. How long are you waiting on average for your stuff to get there?
Well, it all
Varies
depends
wildly.
on where you're coming from.
Everyone said the same
when
thing.
you packed out. So I will tell you, both times going to Oconus and coming back, we packed out super early. So our stuff actually beat us to Japan. And they'll send you an email saying, your stuff is here. It's going to take this long. Half of our stuff going to Virginia is already there. We have our express shipment in storage waiting for us to get there and tell them, okay, bring me my stuff. And then I did recently get an email from the moving company with our household goods that our stuff is in the Port of Los Angeles, and they'll take 2 to 3 weeks to process. And then afterwards, after that 2 to 3 weeks, they will send me another email saying that it's on its way. And who knows how long it'll take to get from LA to Virginia. I don't even know. Really, I would plan, even if it's a CONUS move, I would plan for a month to 3 months to not have your stuff.
Yeah, but
and that's really freaky.
There is an actual calculation. There is an actual calculation that they do as far as, and so I would ask Shannon where they're going to / from. And then also, is it the required delivery date? Is it actually 4 weeks after their pickup date? Or is this just an estimate? Because there's a lot of wiggle room there, and that's why we all said it depends. So for example, we're going from Virginia to Rhode Island. They'll have my stuff. We're actually taking a slight detour, and we're going to take a couple days vacation. So our stuff will beat us there by 2 days. But when we went cross country, we drove cross country in 13 days, and our stuff took an additional 2 weeks to get there after we had left, and we packed out the day before we left. So it really, it's and I don't remember the calculation off the top of your head, but your housing office will know it. And it's something about every X number of pounds and X number of miles, you get a certain amount of time to move.
So
Okay, that's
actually,
good to
Hillary,
know.
I'm going to update you a little bit since I just
yes, I love
your stuff
updates.
is not going to make it here in 2 days anymore. We're on a massive delay right now. Door to door doesn't mean door to door anymore. I got that discussion with our TSP and our local move, as well as with our move folks on base. And door to door means I can't drive more than 6 hours a day, but it doesn't mean I have to drive the day I leave, the next day, the day after. So our required delivery date, that's your RDD, was actually 20 days later. And they did deliver it. We pushed them. We begged. We said, we're going to be there. We're going to be in town. We're ready to take it. We have housing. We tried everything that we could. We ended up getting our things in 7 days. And that was considered door to door now. So door to door is, I mean, like in the Navy, a really long time. And door to door used to mean, hey, I'm driving, I'll see you tomorrow. And I would get in the car and race there to get there before they got there. It doesn't mean that anymore, unfortunately.
It means it doesn't storage, correct?
Yes, so that's what it means.
Is that it doesn't go in storage.
So door to door, the definition.
Storage, but it was locked on that truck, parked somewhere at their warehouse. And so, yeah.
Yes, so that's what the door-to-door definition is these days.
Yeah, if you're a split shipment where you're part of the truck, I mean, we're at the point now where we take a whole truck. How great is that? So we don't have to worry about another delivery or drop off prior to ours or post ours. So that has a little more leeway for us to say to the driver, hey, I know you want it off before Easter. We want it before Easter. Let's make this happen, but that's really all you can do. There's no guarantees, unfortunately. So definitely take a look at that RDD date. That's something we should touch on a little bit because I don't think people know. And I know that's something, Dave, you guys are posting about is an inconvenience claim. There's actually a process that if your RDD date, your required delivery date comes and goes, you reach out to your TSP, that's your parent move company, not the local company that's moving you, but the parent company that contacts you right after you book your move. And you tell them that I want to file an inconvenience claim. I've not received my items. It puts sort of the fear of God into them, and they do everything they can to get your shipment to you because they don't want to pay that inconvenience claim. Because what an inconvenience claim is either hotel and food for you and your family, each person, or it's your ability to go to Target and buy air mattresses and basic appliances, dishes, sheets, towels, everything that you need to live and camp in your house. Of course, it's basics. It's not the luxury items that we all want to go buy, but it is the money to go and do those things. So we did have that when we came back from Oconus. We were 11 and a half weeks waiting for our goods, and our RDD date was 4 weeks later. So I called. I ended up going into a hotel for 2 weeks. After 2 weeks of being in a hotel, that's pretty crappy. We ended up camping in our house, and we went to Target, and we spent $1,700, and they reimbursed us for all of it. It's not a set amount. Each TSP determines what they'll pay for, but it is at least enough to get you each towels and sheets and air mattresses and some basic pots and pans and so on.
I do want to say that when we were in Japan, we got into our tower that we lived in, but our furniture hadn't arrived yet. And I'll tell you, the base housing office gave us some incredibly sexy, beautiful furniture that we got to use for a couple of weeks. And I'll tell you, this stuff was like right out of the fashion magazines. I mean, it was gorgeous stuff.
Yes. So when you do PCS overseas, the RDD date doesn't really apply in the same way. You can't file an inconvenience claim, but what the base will provide you with is temp furniture and usually a kitchen box of basic kitchen supplies. But going overseas, you're most likely going to be 2, 5, 8 weeks without your things, and you're prepared for that. And that's why you get that express shipment. But in the States, we just don't have anything like that. So that RDD date is a game changer for you.
Yeah.
Really
if you couldn't see my, go ahead.
I was going to say 2 things. Amy, I want to come back to your mention about not having like temp furniture and stuff, because I found something out that was really interesting. But I also wanted to go back to Shannon, who put her a little bit more information in the chat. And yes, since it's a cross-country move and it's during peak season, you are probably looking at about 4 weeks. That's been my personal experience. Is that from pickup to drop off, if the movers are doing it, especially if, as Amy said, you're sharing that shipment with another family, you're not the only one on the truck, it's probably about 4 weeks. Going back to Amy about your comment about not being able to have loaner stuff, I have found that a lot of the various fleet and family services have loaner boxes of stuff. So when we came here to Virginia Beach, I was just like, man, I forgot to pack one of my crock pots. I didn't bring as many like this, that, and the others. They had a full bins, like massive bins that were probably, I couldn't lift it by it myself. So it was a decent size, and it was everything except linens that you would need for a house. So you had knives, forks, spoons, kitchen knives, cutting boards, pots and pans. They even had bowls and plates and mixing bowls and measuring spoons and all of those things. So don't, number one, don't forget to look for that. And then number two, I know that I started doing this after another spouse loaned this to me. Ask your spouse groups if anybody has a PCS box that they're willing to share out. I have 3 of them that I loan out, especially during peak season. They come with air mattresses. I've got an Instant Pot. I've got a whole bunch of just basics, which are the stuff that we take with us when we PCS, that I will share out to friends. At one point we had a TV, and then someone bought the TV off of us. But so we would share those out to friends and family as they, loan closets. Yes, thank you. That's what they're called. But we would share those out to our fellow Navy spouses and families as they come into the area.
How can you
one more thing to Shannon, because we did the Millington thing and we did San Diego to Millington. So I will say that Millington is a much smaller duty station. So when your shipment comes into the area, you tend to have it delivered much quicker, whereas San Diego is a much larger duty station. So it may take longer to leave San Diego, but once it goes, you're going to get it faster. That's what we found over time, that going from a massive fleet concentration area to a smaller base, you have a better chance of getting your household goods offloaded faster. So I know there isn't really a lending locker in Millington, or at least there didn't used to be, but definitely check it out. A lot of bases.
Yeah, well, we're leaving Millington and going to Seal Beach.
Oh, okay.
Which is a really small base.
It is, yeah.
That's kind of good to know too, but I guarantee the people that are leaving out of Millington are all probably going to San Diego. So
yeah, that kind of seems like the trend. Exactly.
So you guys saying 4 weeks, I'm like, all right, I just need to prepare for this.
We just took a very, very slow drive across the country. We drove like 5 hours a day, and we stopped and did things with the kids. And, you know, it took us like 7 or 8 days to get across. That used up some time. And then we rented an Airbnb and kind of played vacation for a little while. So enjoy it while you can. You know, you're going to collect that back BAH to cover it. So
yeah.
And the good news is there's a loan closet available in Seal Beach.
How do I know about the loan closets? Like, can I look
literally,
it up? Or?
Yeah, I go to Military One Source, and they have information about what duty stations have loan closets.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, because we have a house already. We just
there you go.
Yeah, we won't have any of our stuff.
Any of your stuff. Yeah, and
don't contact FFC. Okay.
Yeah, so I would still pack your like linens and things like that, but militaryOneSource.mil will be able to tell you what installations have loan closets. And that's actually been a fabulous lifesaver a couple of times for us.
Yeah. How can you identify that you're in the home of a military family? Well, they usually have 3 crock pots, 6 irons, 4 blenders. I do want to say that if you find yourself in a situation and you, like Hillary was saying, that, oh my gosh, I forgot I didn't bring my crock pot, and you buy one and now your stuff shows up, take that thing that you bought and donate it to those loan closets, because there's another military family that's coming on your heels that could probably use that. So
actually, Dave, I would say give them a call and ask. All of the lending closets we've asked about, they are not allowed to take used items anymore.
Really?
Oh.
Yeah. They are given a stipend to build their kits. And unfortunately, they don't know that your crock pot is safe. And if they lend it out and there's a fire, they're liable. So they haven't been allowed to take things for a while. And that may be region specific, but definitely check on that before you make that plan. Your better bet's to hold on to it till your next move, or share it on a spouse page with somebody that, you know, needs it.
Yeah.
And that's how our stuff has happened. Pass it along.
Or give it to your local disabled American veterans, your local Dave's store. At least if it sells, it goes back to veterans. Okay, so hey, I want to move on to a different topic here. And this is a topic that I know a lot of people will identify with. And that is, what can I do to prevent my stuff getting broken? You know, so what preactive, excuse me, I'm drawing a blank on the words, but what proactive, there we go. What proactive steps can I take to make sure that my great grandma's china doesn't get broken, or my pictures, the glass that hang on the wall doesn't get broken? What is there any tips that you all can share?
I have a tip. And I didn't do this personally, but a girlfriend of mine did. You can go to the Pack and Wrap and you can have them pack it. And let me tell you, I've only had one thing that I shipped from Japan to Texas that broke. But a girlfriend of mine, she spent literally thousands of dollars on Starbucks cups, spent a lot of money on them, and she took them all to the Pack and Wrap. They individually wrapped every cup, and then every cup was stuffed in a box of 1,000,005 packing peanuts. Nothing was going to break them. The only problem doing that is also, it's a good thing and also a little tricky with covering it. A lot of the times they will write on it that it was packed by the military member or their spouse. And then sometimes you can get it covered if something happens to break, but more times than not, they won't cover it. So there's a really toss up with doing that sort of stuff. But if it's like your grandmother's china, That's a personal thing, and I would do that. Or if you have the ability, if you're doing just a CONUS new move, to just wrap it up in your suitcase and put it in your car.
Also, you can do a partial PPM if you're doing a CONUS to CONUS move. So that box that she filled with her Starbucks cups, they can ship that themselves via UPS or FedEx with whoever has already packed it, and they can take the receipts for that as long because it'll have the weight on it, and they can file for reimbursement in that for that and get, I believe that even for partial PPMs, it's on 100% of what they would have paid the contractor. So
as long as your UAB shipment, your household goods shipment, and your storage shipment all add up to less than your move allowance, you can be reimbursed. We did it for about $700 worth of boxes, but you have to be below your weight. If you are at your weight or above, you don't get reimbursed.
So let me ask
I'm going to play the devil's advocate. I've 14 moves, never filed a claim. I don't have any damage. We just, for us, it's about prep. I should say for me, not for my husband, because I do the work, but it's about prep. I sort my house. I put all of our decorative items together in the dining room. I put all of our framed pictures together, all lined up on one wall. I put all my dishes in the kitchen. I put all the toys together in another space. My whole house is sorted. And when I said Ziploc bags are your friend, they are. I Ziploc bag all little items. Everything in drawers is Ziploc bag. But for those breakable things, I am in the kitchen with them when they're wrapping them. I have 43 Starbucks mugs from around the world. I have Polish pottery. I have treasures that I don't want to lose. I have a Chinese cabinet I brought back from Singapore. All of those things, I am vocal with them as they're packing it. I say to them, there's scroll work on here. I don't want it to be broken off. What are your suggestions? We talk about putting in cardboard. We talk about how it's packed. Then I stand outside when they load my truck and I say, whoa, 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 that's my Chinese cabinet. It can't go on the bottom. That needs to be on the top. I say, wait a minute, that says China. That shouldn't be a bottom box. I'm actively involved in my whole process. It's an enormous amount of work. And I know it's not for everybody, but if you put the time in sorting and prepping, and then you're actively paying attention to them packing, you can have an unbreakable move.
I will say that I know with some of our more delicate items, our movers actually wrote on the box, not a bottom box or something like that. I know there was a thing where it says don't put on the bottom. Like I bought very huge glass vase things, and they were heavy, but they wrote on them, do not put on the bottom.
Right. It'll say top load, and and I talk to them about when they're packing about, that's a glass item. I have those giant demijohn glass containers from Europe, and I've said to them, I want one in the box, but because I sorted my house, I don't allow them to pack that with my tools in the garage. Those things get packed with the other decorative accessories, which are glass and breakable. So they don't walk around the house to fill a box and go, oh, those wrenches can get tossed in here and those shoes can get tossed in here. So by doing that, you're kind of controlling how things are layered in your boxes.
And communication.
Yes.
Communication is key. If you they're not going to get offended if you tell them, I need you to put more packing paper in there. They'll do it. They're working for you.
So my first move that I ever made was in Millington, going to Japan. And I was very, again, it was my first move. And I wasn't aware of my rights. And I even said to, the driver of and this is a true story. I said to the driver, the lead guy, hey, your crew, you guys seem to be arguing a lot here. I would have figured that you guys have done a lot of these moves together and get along a little better. And the guy literally told me, I don't know these guys. I picked them up at Home Depot. And that was very concerning to me. Then when two of them got into a fist fight on the front lawn, that's when I was like, okay, what's going on here? But I just kind of let them keep moving because I was new to this. Can you talk to me about what are my rights? What do I have the authority to do during my move if it doesn't seem like it's going right?
Ask them to stop and leave your house, and you contact your transportation office. That's it. If at any point you feel uncomfortable, I don't care if it's because you want them to wear masks in the house and they aren't because of COVID, or because you feel that they are not respecting the boundaries that you have set out. If you find them going into a room that you don't want them going into, whatever it is, if at any point you feel uncomfortable, you feel unsafe as a person, whatever, leave my house. I'm calling my transportation office. I'm calling my move coordinator. That's it.
Yeah, I think that's the number one thing that people don't realize is it's your move, you're the customer, you control it. The number one thing that moving company needs is your signature on those documents. If you don't sign those documents, they don't get paid. I'm going to give you a perfect example. We are people that do the full unpack. We told them that we were going to do a full unpack when we booked the move, when they came for the move assessment, when they did the pack up, we told the driver. We've all along the way, I talked to the TSP, I talked to the local company, and I said, we're doing a full unpack. We get here to Rhode Island, he starts to unpack. He goes upstairs and talks to my husband, knowing that he's not the one running the move, and says, hey, you know, I don't have time to unpack, but it's okay. We're going to send a team tomorrow to go ahead and unpack you. And my husband said, hey, if my wife says it's okay, sure. So he came downstairs and he said, listen, we're going to send a team to unpack tomorrow. And I said, that's great. I would love that. I'll sign your paperwork when you come to unpack. And he was like, oh, no, you have to sign the paperwork. And I said, no, I don't. So I called his TSP, his move coordinator. I called the TSP and I called the Navy Transportation Office. And the Navy Transportation Office said, no, do not sign anything. They will not return. So I went back. We didn't argue. We didn't fight. I went back to him and said, that's fine. I'm just not going to sign. So it became 7 o'clock, 7:30, 8 o'clock. He said, listen, I was told to go. I said, that's great. You can go. He said, just sign here because it's just that you accepted your household goods, but not that I unpacked them. And I said, no, I've been told I will not sign. And he said, no, you don't understand. I said, no, you don't understand. I know how this works. This is my move. I'm not signing anything. And he drove away. His company made him return the next day and unpack all my household goods because he doesn't get paid until I sign that paperwork. So you have the power of your move. And that's how it is the whole way through. If they are not packing your items well, if they are not listening to what you say, if, like Hillary said, if they're not wearing masks or they're being rude or they're constantly going out for smoke breaks, any of those times you can stop them. You have two people, you have a TSP and you have the transportation office. The transportation office will also come out and visit if you have a real issue. So somebody can come to you and be that mediator. You shouldn't have to be in an argument or screaming or yelling with your provider. There should never happen, but know that you have the right and the right to say no.
And they also don't have the right to stay there all night.
Right.
When you do a full unpack, I've attempted it once. It wasn't quite as forceful, but they just like dump your stuff. That can't be what they should be doing. So they just like dumped it. Like, here you go. Here's your unpack.
Yeah. So let's talk about unpack. I guess a reason to that. Everybody always asks us this. We started with we started with just the kitchen and all of our framed pictures and our wardrobe boxes. And then we kind of increased over the years to get comfortable to do a full unpack. A lot of that is successful because we do the prep work. So they're opening a box and they're pulling out Ziploc bag. And I tell them, line my floors with it. That's fine. You're not touching my things. You're not damaging. I tell them we do not dump boxes and we do not unpack in more than 2 spaces because I have an adult in one room and adult in another. When I'm alone, we unpack in 1 space at a time and we unpack together. As you unwrap, I take. So I have a bunch of folding tables that we've collected over the years. I put folding tables up around the house so they can unpack onto that surface. They can unpack onto floors. They can lay clothes on beds, but we do not dump. And I constantly walk through. I've stopped it numerous times and said, if you're going to continue to dump, I'm not going to sign your paperwork. This is how it's going to be. If you hold strong and stick to your guns, they will not do those things because they know they won't be paid.
To our team on the line here, I want to let you know one word in the comments, which is you all have gotten an amen with an exclamation mark. And I echo that. And I'm glad that you brought that up because I did have one move where they showed up about 6 hours late. And finally around midnight, I had to say, you guys got to go. this is too much. Come back tomorrow. So I'm glad to hear that it is okay to send them away and come back, because that's just not reasonable hours.
Yep, actually 7 p.m. is the cutoff. You have anything after 7, you have the right to say, I need you to return tomorrow.
Yes, and they have no right to tell you that they won't come back.
That's right.
They are paid when the job is done.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you don't sign your paperwork, no matter what they tell you, they don't control the paperwork, you do.
This also includes your pack out. This is not just your unpack. If someone doesn't show up, so I have a perfect example for you. I had a team when we were in Baltimore, Maryland. They apparently were from down here in Virginia Beach, and they drove from Virginia Beach to Baltimore to pack me. I don't know how that was a thing, but they didn't get to me until noon. And then they told me that they had every intention of staying until midnight. I am by myself. I was, this was darn near 7 or 8 years ago. I had sent my dogs to a dog daycare because I had one who would have literally just peed on them. He would have freaked out so much. It was not a great, I love the dog, didn't love how he reacted to strangers. And they were sitting here telling me, oh, well, we're not going to be done until midnight tonight. No, man, you've got to leave my house. I'm not comfortable with you here, with 4 of you here and me. My husband is not here. I'm not comfortable with you being here that late. You need to come back tomorrow. Oh, well, we can't come back tomorrow. We're only supposed to be here for 1 day for this pack. I'm not signing anything. You're leaving my house. And I know that not everybody's comfortable doing that. And for some people, that's a big stretch. This is the same face I have at all times. And that's just how I roll. I know I can see the people who know me. They're laughing because they know I can be a little aggressive, but you don't have to be as to the point as I am. You can be very gentle and still say, no, I'm not comfortable. I need you to leave and come back tomorrow. They have no right to tell you what your move is going to be within the structure.
Let's we've only got about 15 minutes left, a little bit less than that. It's hard to believe that time has flown by this quickly. But remember, again, we're going to be doing another Facebook Live, a Zoom Live PCS help session May 20th. So make sure you tell all of your friends. Post it on social media. Let anybody and everybody know, especially those that are going to be PCSing during this peak season, to tune in, because you can see we've got the best of the best when it comes to panel and experts on here. But let's go quickly over to Stacy. Stacy's had her hand up for a while. For Stacy to ask her question or make her comment, and then I want to go back to, and I feel bad that they haven't had a chance to talk much, but we've got Gabe and Buddy, who I want to ask a couple of questions about using your government travel card. So Stacy, first over to you.
Should be a quick question. So we're moving to San Diego. We received actually word today that our housing wait will be 3 to 5 months acknowledged. So we're kind of trying to figure out. We've done lots of storage moves, but never beyond 3 months. So we wanted to know, how do we get that extended and paid for that storage move when it's beyond that maximum allowable for PCS and it's due to waiting on housing?
Communicate with your housing office that the reason why you're extending is due to being on the housing wait list. You can get a letter from housing saying that you're on the wait list if necessary. Sometimes they've asked me for that and sometimes they haven't. And it's usually as simple as that.
Okay.
Going to San Diego, I'd have a backup plan. The housing list doesn't move very much at all in San Diego, almost like a snail's pace. We were on the list for 2 years and we moved up 1 slot. So it depends on which housing area you're looking at, but we were
not looking at, we were told we wanted first available. So we have the definite, they have a spot for us kind of thing. We're not waiting for 36 months for Coronado. We're just going to like the Canyon something or other, but
Canyon View. Yes, that's what it's Canyon View. Yeah.
Said this will move. You're coming from Oconus technically because of the service member and that kind of stuff. But so it's not like we're holding out for Admiral Hartman or Coronado. I mean, this is realistic. So, I mean, it is happening. Gotta wait.
Stacy, I will tell you one PCS tip to San Diego that I can share with you, and that was the Navy sent me there for 1 year just to go to grad school. And so my wife and I said, you know what, it'd be great to just live in an RV on the beach for a year. And so we bought an RV and we went to Fiddler's Cove, and we were able to spend a year in San Diego living in the RV. We didn't have really much of a housing wait list because, I mean, there was availability for us. But living, you know, and it depends on where you go. I know one public affairs officer who has been living, everywhere she goes, she just takes the RV and they find a place right there on base, and she's been pulling her house with her for 10 years.
But after 19 months living solo on the ship, my husband is kind of ready to make fling more than 7.
Absolutely. It's not for everybody.
I will say be in communication with the housing office. We've never been to San Diego, but probably 75% of my friends have. And again, communication is key. And sometimes being that nice, pushy person will get them over the edge to get you in a house.
Squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Mm-hmm. And when you go to San Diego, go to Indigo Grill.
There you go. Good restaurant tip.
I'm from San Diego, born and raised, and it is. If I could only put one restaurant in my pocket, I'd have to pick 2 because I want my taco shop, but I also want to take Indigo Grill with me wherever I go in the world.
Yeah, but I also know how much your kids love barbecue sauce, and there's the barbecue place in downtown where they
Phil's.
Yeah, Phil's is a good.
Yes.
We for like 6 months in San Diego, and then we did 2 years in Monterey. So we're circling back around.
There you go. Yeah. All right,
Thanks.
let's go over to
Sir, real quick.
please.
If you're only talking about barbecue, you're only talking about Memphis.
That's true.
Everything else comes in a distant second place.
The pig and whistle.
No.
The pig
No.
Germantown
Texas,
commissary.
OG Texas barbecue, my friends. That is the way that you go.
So I see there's one more question in the chat. If we could get to that one.
Yeah, absolutely. This is again from I think it's from Kathy. Totally okay if we run out of time on this, but we are really going not tip Packers anymore. Oh, this is about tipping Packers. Yes, go right ahead.
So we're in the camp of we've only tipped, I think, 3 times in 14 moves, that we've tipped only if the service has been exceptional over and above. The way the wording has changed from Transcom is that it's not encouraged. You're still okay to, but it's not encouraged. And that's to take the pressure off people so that they don't feel like they have to tip. Nobody should feel like they have to tip for doing your job. And that was always our philosophy, was you came to our house, you did your job. I fed you lunch because you were here all day, but you didn't do anything exceptional or over and above. You just did your job. So I didn't feel the need to tip. Other people, I'd like to see what the panel does. Some people always tip, some people never tip. It's always the age-old debate.
Mac, are you a tipper?
The very first move we ever did, maybe the first 2, I tipped, but then I thought we weren't supposed to, and so what I saw everyone else was doing is like bringing them food. So I've always fed my Packers, and I can't remember, because I didn't always realize that like a different team comes to load you, right? And so I always fed my Packers, but I can't remember now if I fed my loaders too. I feel like I didn't, because they're like on the go, right? And they're packed pretty quick. So I always fed the Packers, but I quit tipping them after the first couple moves.
Hillary, tip or no tip?
I do not tip, and the reason that I do not tip is because I communicate with the team in advance. I will feed you breakfast. You let me know what you want for lunch, and I will have Uber Eats or DoorDash or whoever deliver it, because that's how it goes. I will make sure you have Gatorade and water, but I do not tip.
Willow, tip or no tip?
I have never tipped, and sometimes I will feed them, sometimes I won't. Our move from Virginia to Texas, I fed them. They were awesome. They ate the food. Texas to Japan, I bought 2 big pizzas. My husband and I ate 2 pizzas for more than 4 days.
Got it.
I was very upset. But I will say also, if you're moving from Japan, the Japanese movers do not accept tips. at all. Most of the time they will accept like American beer
food.
or
Yep, beer.
They like
like
pizza.
chicken or something like that. Something that they can't
Stuff
get.
that they can't buy unless it's at the
They can't
commissary.
buy out in Japan land, as I like to call it.
Which
They
by the
wanted
way,
Doritos. They wanted Doritos when we moved.
which by the way, the Japanese packers are by far absolutely. They don't pack your stuff; they gift wrap it.
It's Tetris. It's a beautiful game of Tetris when they do it.
Yeah,
They wrapped my couch. They literally wrapped my couch.
Yeah,
That's
you
what
almost
happened.
my stuff looked better wrapped than unwrapped. So you almost just don't want to unwrap it. And by the way, Stacy says she tips the driver, but she feeds the team. Tips the driver, feeds the team. And also, I got a kudos there. Absolutely the best ever in regards to the Japanese Packers. Hey, I do want to real quickly, we've got 5 minutes left, and I want to go over to Buddy and Gabe. Buddy, Gabe, again, please talk to us about, and I apologize that we haven't gotten much to you this evening. There's so much talk about, just packers and movers and so much information there we want to get out. But I really want to make sure that we talk about the GTCC, because for years, I've had to put my whole move on my personal credit card and then ultimately get reimbursed. So let's talk about number one. What is the number one benefit of using the GTCC for your move?
Okay, I'm not sure if Gabe is on there or if you guys can hear me, but one of the primary benefits is there is no interest charges. And you also get travel insurance and other benefits associated with the card, and you don't have to pay any bill because you get placed in the mission critical status. So your APC will put the card in the mission critical status about 10 days before the sailor detaches. So they're not going to get any bill until after they get to their permanent duty station, roughly 60 days or after 30, 45 days, whatever the case may be. But at the same time, that's one of the benefits of doing that. The goal is to give sailors choices, so sailors weren't incurring or using high interest credit cards, to cover expenses that maybe some of their entitlements didn't cover. And so we've been working now on this journey since July of 2019, and we started out with a pilot program of a small scope, people conducting point A to point B transfers only, CONUS to CONUS. We eventually expanded that audience till we went to phase 3 this past year in NAV Admin 17620, where we opened it up for everyone. Now, there are a couple of exclusions, like accessions and a few other categories that we excluded from this. PPMs are excluded presently. There is some exploring going on about how to work the billing for people that want to use the card, but maybe do a PPM move instead of using traditional shipping transportation. But we have been working closely, as I mentioned to you, sir, with Matt Knight and his team to get more information out. We promulgated numerous flyers that are available on the My Navy HR and My Navy portal website, to brochures, educational tools and tips, and multiple NAV admins. And we're trying to downplay some of the conceptions that we've received through feedback from max.gov. Myself and Mr. Cantu and us, we collect feedback from sailors in the fleet who have used the GTCC or maybe haven't. One of the biggest concerns that those that may have used it or are reluctant to use it has been concerns about vouchers and repayments, to get the bills paid in a timely manner, liquidating on the back end when they report to their permanent duty station. But we are working closely with the NIPSC team and TPCs to have them looking at voucher processing time on that back end to improve the sailors' confidence, not only in the card, but also in getting their money back in their pocket and not having outstanding bills.
Hey, buddy, what can I use it for, and what can't I use it for?
Well, there's a variety of things. You can use them for anything related to official travel. You can use it for POV transportation. You can use it for meals and lodging en route, TLA, TLE, or other things that traditionally you need to establish a house when you get to your new duty station for incidentals and things that you need. There is a couple of exclusions. One is you're not supposed to be able to combine use of the GTCC with taking travel advances, because a concern with that has been that potentially people can get the money on their card to conduct their transfer, but also receive travel advances. And these two books may not be harmonized, and the sailor end up with an indebtedness on the back end. So that's one of the concerns why there's a restriction out there. Now, naturally, you can use the card if you're traveling with your dependents. If the dependents are going to travel non-concurrently with the member, then you get a traditional pay advance for the dependent travel, and the sailor uses the card. But like I said, we're fixing to, we've prepared some courses of action for leadership to review here in the near future, and working with the PAO office to announce some things that we're recommending, hoping to gain a little wider acceptance and use of the GTCC for PCS purposes.
Sir, can you talk a little bit just quickly about PCS expenses that are covered? Because I heard I need to go buy a washer and dryer. I can use my government travel card for that. Is that correct?
Well, things that you have to establish a resident is really how it's listed. But what we've done is we went out there and listed specific examples in the brochures that we have available and the nav admin messages that outlines what it really can be and cannot be used for.
One of the things that happens is when your card, this is Gabe Cantu, when the sailor decides to use the card for travel expenses, and it's communicated and it's put into a mission critical status, that opens up merchant category codes that were previously closed off to a person using a credit card for just like normal travel. So one of those could be, like a Home Depot situation. So you could technically go in there and purchase a refrigerator or something like that to establish your household.
I've got two questions in the chat, and I want to make sure that Buddy, this question's for you, and then Gabe, the second question is for you. Buddy, for you, when we PCS to Okinawa, our travel voucher took 4 months to be paid. How is this addressed with paying the GTCC? That's to you, Buddy. And Gabe, the second question is, what website location can service members go to find more information on using their GTCC, or should they just go to their CPPA? So first, let's go ahead and talk to Buddy about the payment question. Buddy, you there?
I am. I was fixing to add some things into the chat. That's why I had it muted for a moment. Now, okay. You were discussing some concerns related to significantly delays payments for travel vouchers.
Yeah. Again, the question is, we PCS to Okinawa and our travel voucher took 4 months to be paid. How is this addressed with paying the GTCC?
Well, one of the things that I without the particular information, the one thing I would ask though is that, back in the day, we used to go to PSD and see our personnel representative. They became a PLR at your local command. Now they're CPPAs. But I guess my question would be, if I was still on active duty and transferred and reported to my next duty station and submitted a travel voucher with the supporting documents, after say 7 to 10 days as the member, I'm contacting someone at that point. I'm not saying that sailors aren't doing this, but a lot of times what we are learning from the people in NPSC and TPCs that process vouchers is they're citing one of the biggest delays is at times a lack of supporting documentation to process the claim. And I don't work in pay processing, so I don't want to speak for them, but we do work with them as part of this body of ours, the GTCC for PCS purposes. And one of the things that we've heard substantially for some period of time is that on average, they've improved their processing time, supposedly down to approximately 15 days processing a claim, but they also use that term a lot, clean claim. And what they're referring to is that having all of the applicable documentation to process it properly.
Buddy, can I just stop you right there, because I'm in the middle of the process right now. I'm 4 weeks waiting on being paid, and I have a clean claim. And our pay folks here in Newport have said, this is the delay coming out of Norfolk. This is the way the region is, and we'll be lucky if we see anything before 60 days. So even with a clean claim, and my husband is very actively connecting, over and over again with his pay folks here and checking on that claim, it's still ridiculously delayed. So I think the big question is, if they use their government travel card, will it help cut down on getting reimbursed? And from what I've heard, that's true, because the government travel card will be paid in a timely manner.
Well, yes, and specifically, you know, if the member does, when they remit the voucher and marks it, ensures that they mark it for split disbursement. A lot of times we've realized that sailors have had some problems that have used the GTCC card, and we've gone back and found out that the government did pay them, but Citibank didn't get paid because they didn't split disperse the payment. So the sailor gets all the money back, and Citibank's not getting theirs, so they end up on a delinquent list. But I want to assure you all, one thing though, is I've taken a lot of notes during this conversation here. And I do want to go back with Mr. Cantu and my boss, you know, maybe tomorrow when we talk offline, and say, hey, I had a chance to talk to the spouse advisory panel. And while we're trying to market and gain wider acceptance of the GTCC as a viable PCS tool for sailors to use, there are still concerns with people right now in the PCS process that are not getting their vouchers liquidated in a timely manner. And he will reach across over to the OIC or whatever at NPSC and share this feedback with them and the TPCs, so we can make sure that these areas of concern are being looked at and what is being done to improve that, you know, to get that money back in the pocket of the sailors and their spouses in a timely manner.
Yeah, and that's the first thing that's the single largest thing that we do here, I think, right now, right, Amy? This is the single largest thing and issue that we hear from sailors and their spouses is this delay in payment is concerning. So yeah. I greatly appreciate you going back and us trying to figure out a way that we can solve that.
Yeah, and Buddy, if you wouldn't mind, just take note to a couple of the comments in chat and use that as documentation. Stacy saying 36 months exclamation point, and we are still waiting for the remaining $6,000. 36 months, that's crazy. And a couple of comments here about PSD errors and loss of documentation. So yeah, if you could take that information back to leadership, that would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah. Well, what I'm doing, and thank you guys so much for putting this out in the chat besides just saying it, because I am taking notes, but I'm also able to copy it out of the chat right here into a working document. So I've collected this and can share it with my leadership tomorrow, and me and Mr. Cantu and Commander Reyes and others start talking about this and say, and Commander Knight, who happens to be the PAO at NPC in Millington where we work, to make sure that, you know, as we have this PCS communications plan that we're working on right now during the summer surge, that we look at some of this and make sure that we're addressing some of this and some of the messaging that's going out.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, listen, we are about 10 minutes beyond our time limit here. And I want to make sure that we say our goodbyes before Zoom kicks us off the net. So I really want to thank Amy and Willow and Hillary and Mac and Buddy and Gabe and Force Master Chief for joining us online. I hope that a lot of people found this beneficial. Again, I'm recording this. I'll be posting it to Facebook so that those who weren't able to join us on live can at least watch it. Hello to everybody in Japan. I think hopefully you all will benefit from the time difference. Kathy, you're quite welcome. Thank you for that in chat. And remember, please pass the word. We're going to be doing this again May 20th, where we'll talk about a whole bunch of other topics. So pass the word to other spouses, your spouses groups, your family support groups, and let people know that there is some really great experts who have been through this process many, many times, who have a lot of great information to share. So thank you to everybody. I really appreciate you tuning in, and I hope everybody has a great night, and more importantly, a great PCS. Thanks a lot, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Thank you all.
Good night.